Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Creative Warrior online program powered by Vidyadan. On behalf of Media and Entertainment Skills Council, this is Pooja Arora welcoming you all on this series with Global Media Education Council. Yes, it's a wonderful series going on with GMEC, and we are so glad to introduce about today's speaker. She's a wonderful woman with a lot of credit to her profile. She is head of Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Aliyah University. She has worked as a sub-editor, senior sub-editor at Brahman Traveler. Sorry, I'm sorry if, for the mispronunciation. And as a project manager, social communications for Black Magic Motion Pictures. She is impaneled with the Ministry of Information and Cultural Affairs, Government of West Bengal, and has worked on various documentary films projects for both national and international NGOs. In addition, would like to name a few: Action Aid, UNICEF, and a lot more. The list is huge. Her thirst area lies in issues of gender and minority representation in media, largely Indian cinema. So today we are going to learn from her a lot about gender and media. Ms. Yasmin, you're welcome on this platform.
Thank you so much, Pooja. It's indeed a pleasure. And at the outset, let me extend my warmest Pujo greetings to all watching. Happy Mahashtami to everyone. And may the divine energy of the goddess make her continue to, achieve greater heights in our pursuit of academic success.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, it's Durga Ashtami, and as we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav as well, so it's a good day and a auspicious day, and we'll be learning about gender. So I think it's the right day to talk about equality and to talk about gender in media. I would love to hand over this session to you. So, and I'll be learning at the back end.
Sure. Please allow me to share my screen.
Yes, you have the rights.
Okay. So the topic, I hope I'm audible. I'm clearly audible, Pooja.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so today, like Pooja already mentioned, that it's an auspicious day. It's a day that we are celebrating the female power, the female goddess. So I think it's a good time that we talk about gender and, gendered representations in media, and what is the association of gender with media, as in, who are the people behind kind of manufacturing media content for you. So for this session today, this is a summation of the learning objectives that we have. We'll try to understand the notion of gender, which is operational within the context of mass media. We all know that gender is an operative term which has sociological, anthropological, psychological, political, and a lot historical connotations, but we will try to specifically locate it within the context of mass media. We'll also try to analyze the broad theoretical framework of the feminist studies, the various feminist studies movements that started and which kind of also impacted the realm of media. We'll also try to explore the representation of media in different strains of media content like print, television, advertising, films, and of course, social media now. And we'll also try to interrogate and question the functioning of mainstream mass media as a disjunct to the cause of gender equality. I mean, now is the time when we continue to harp on the theme of gender equality, but what actually is the real scenario? That is something which we are going to analyze and locate. Of course, we are going to study the development of alternative, media platforms. Are they kind of, democratizing women's issues? Are they giving rights to women? Especially, we've been hugely impacted by the pandemic just, 2.5 years ago. And so what role has media played to kind of, locate, the unheard voices of women, because women, as we all understand, were doubly marginalized, and it happens with every calamity that it's people who are on the peripheries, women as, being on the peripheries, that they fail to get a voice. I mean, they're merely treated as statistics, as figures, but what about the real stories? Is there any kind of a representation there in mainstream media? We'll also try to comprehend gender sensitization and awareness in the media-centric parlance, and we'll be trying to analyze the new media policies and frameworks which are emerging right now in congruence with the movements of social justice and gender equality. So that is largely the discussion today. Now, let us first understand, I'm sure a lot of you all know this, but just to kind of, elaborate it further, what is this notion of gender? So when we, there's always this kind of, an overlap. I mean, supposing you're filling up any application form, a form for the Aadhaar card, or, you're opening a Facebook ID or things like that, they ask for either your gender or your sex. So your sex, male or female, or your gender, which also kind of, normally it kind of, we kind of associate it, okay, it's the male or the female. But we have to understand that, this a notion of gender is a very, very important, strategic, deliberate social construct, where sex is natural. You're born, with a certain sense of with a certain set of biological organs. You are born with an alternative set of biological organs. That is the basic and natural, quote unquote, difference that is there, in nature, so to speak. But how has this notion of gender biologically and socially engineered? Now, I'll give you an example. Now, supposing there's a small baby which is born in your family, maybe it's a nephew or a niece, and you go and visit for the first time, and the nurse brings out the baby and shows you the face, and the baby is kind of frowning, or it starts smiling or crying. So can you at that moment of time tell me whether it is a male baby or a female baby, whether it's a baby boy or a baby girl? I mean, Pooja, since the two of us are here, I mean, can you by the face or by their action or by their need for food or milk specifically identify, that it's a boy or a girl?
No.
Okay, yeah. So, but, just kind of, take it fast forward to like, a situation where the same child born in your family is now, say, 6 years or 7 years old, and the birthday is being celebrated. Now, you would, when you enter that birthday venue, you will very clearly be able to demarcate, and by the look, with the physical appearance, you can make out whether, there are baby boys or baby girls, the way they are dressed, the choice of colors, pink for the girls, blue for the boys, the kind of toys that they're playing with, maybe dolls and a kitchen set. That is perhaps what you give to a baby girl, while you maybe choose a building set, or, a Lego toys, with bridges and buildings, or let's say you choose guns for the boys. So that is how, it's a very, very socially engineered concept. It kind of defines, how you are to behave, what is the kind of, set practice that you need to follow. You are totally kind of divided into two categories, and these are watertight compartments. And when we talk about this engineered construction of gender, this goes back, to the primitive society. So Frederick Engels, he gave the concept of patriarchy, and he said that primitive civilization was very, very equitable, in terms of gender, because, the man was hunter-gatherer, and so they were moving around in bunches, small groups trying to collect berries and roots and shrubs to survive. They did not know how to make a fire. They did not know how to grow crops. But slowly and steadily, as human beings evolved, what happened is that as human beings evolved, they tried to kind of, create certain, they started doing certain actions. They became settled farmers. They kind of, tried to grow crops, and they started trying to settle around in groups and communities. And that is when, the first idea of a family was born, and with the idea of the family was, the onset of patriarchy, because with family, there was this a sense of ownership. So ownership and kind of, the institution of marriage and all these things were born, and that is when the division of labor happened. And it was ascribed that, okay, a man was supposed to do this and a woman was supposed to do this. And slowly and steadily, as the society progressed and evolved, we see very, very watertight gender division compartments. And of course, if you go to the details of what Frederick Engels explained, this was, why do you create a difference at all if if both are similar? Including the mental ability and all other capabilities, men and women. And we see so many examples today in society. They're kind of, going shoulder to shoulder, but it's just that, there was a deliberate creation of that difference, because that difference would lead to discrimination, and the discrimination would lead to, kind of suppression of women, or, one gender, so to speak. So it was the mind which was ascribed to being quote unquote male, and it was the body which was ascribed to being a woman or a girl. So even if you look at the languages and the politics of languages, let's for example, Pooja, let's take Hindi. So now in Hindi, what happens that you will see that all giants, like the mountains, Himalaya Parvat ऊंचा है, हिमालय पर्वत ऊंची नहीं है, लेकिन महासागर बहुत विशाल है, बहुत बड़ा है, बट नदियां जो होती हैं, वो गंगा नदी वो बहती है, या नर्मदा नदी बहती है, and then what happens that it goes and merges itself or loses its identity into the ocean, which is male. So even these connotations as to what will be, the feminine, the thrilling kya hoga or pulling kya hoga, all these things kind of ascribe to create a difference, and or they ascribe to kind of create a hierarchy in society within which media is also operational. So if you look at this slide, it basically explains the social constructions of gender. So institutions of family, education, religion, caste, state, media, of course, and the market controls, one gender, via normative functions of fertility, labor, mobility, property, resources, and sexuality. In fact, I think just a couple of days ago, the Supreme Court came up with a very landmark judgment that it said that, for example, the right of an abortion is to be given to a woman, irrespective of whether she's married or not. On the contrary, when we look at a very, very developed society like the United States also, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of brouhaha about the abortion rights, where suddenly the abortion rights were taken away from women. So these are the controls, which this construction of gender tries to kind of formulate and extend, so that the issues, what should be a role of any particular gender, what should be the qualities, what should be the normative behavior, and what should be the value of that particular individual belonging to a gender is kind of ascribed. And in this large, larger social parlance, media plays a very, very important role, and we'll see how. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So media, what is the function of media? We say that, when when we're talking to a student also, that media is a reflection of what is happening in society. So in a way, we can say that media mirrors society. Media also creates a market by selling you ideas, products, services. That's exactly what advertising does. Media mediates experiences of its audiences, so when I'm talking to you one-on-one, but when, I have this iPad before me and I'm mediating through, a space, my voice is getting amplified, the entire session is being broadcast, and it's live streamed, so maybe it will reach out to a lot of people. So the moment media comes in between you and me, there is an entire change in perspective. Even the way I behave, I'll be more formal, I'll kind of be very careful about my language, and this entire experience would completely change vis-a-vis if it was a physical interaction between the two of us. Media also provides myths. It circulates and sustains them. In fact, it perpetuates myths, that, okay, women cannot go out in the streets, and why? And because woman is because the feminine gender is a weaker gender. So that is the kind of myth, because if you look at the physical abilities or the mental abilities, we see that they're completely complementary. So if men are born with a certain set of abilities, on the contrary, there's another very, very important and very, very powerful set of abilities with which a woman is born with. For example, procreation, giving birth, the kind of pain, the kind of patience, the kind of strength that involves. So when you say that, oh, a woman is the weaker sex, again, this connotation of weaker sex is kind of very demeaning, and it kind of tries to delegitimize the power of a woman. And of course, media creates definitions of the normal. So if I give you some examples, these, again, language and the politics of language is a very, very important marker of how these normative functions or associations are kind of, created. For example, you hear people saying that kya ladkiyon ki tarah ro rahe ho. So this crying, this act of crying, this action of crying is considered to be weak, it's submissive, and it's docile. So you always associate it to a woman. So even if the man cannot cry, he's supposed to be superhuman, and oh, you cannot cry, or if you're crying, you're like ladkiyon ki tarah ro rahe ho, ya aapne kya chuniyan pehen rakhi hain, agar you want to say that acha, you cannot fight back, or you cannot stand up for your rights. So now again, this bangle is has got a very, very female connotation. Men don't wear bangles. So if you're wearing bangles, you're weak. So all these kind of, creation of these definitions of normal. I mean, you look at Hindi cinema and it's kind of full of such repetitive, perpetuated stereotypes. Ladki to paraya dhan hai, you're objectifying a woman, you kind of, making her animate, taking away the sense of agency. So there are loads of such examples where media is kind of trying to perpetuate and propagate these stereotypes that are built around gender. Now, Ghazala is a very, very important scholar, and she gave a very, very beautiful explanation, and I thought it would be apt to share in the session, when she said that men and women live on a stage on which they act out their assigned roles equal in importance. The play cannot go on without both of them. Neither of them contributes more or less to the whole. Neither is marginal or dispensable. But the stage set is conceived, painted, defined by men. Men have written the play, they have directed the show, they have interpreted the meanings of action, and they have assigned themselves the most interesting, most heroic parts, giving women the supporting roles. So to this effect, there's another very famous journalist, she's a cine journalist, she's a film journalist and film critic, and she writes that, like, especially if we look at the Bombay cinema, and by Bombay cinema, I mean the Hindi cinema industry. So, it's like, the films are like a game of chess. So the men are the knights in shining armor, the heroes and the villains, but it's the women who are the sacrificial pawns. So most of the times you take up a movie and you'll see that women are just there as a cosmetic addition, just to adorn or, play a larger kind of subplot in a story. They don't really have a very real important role which kind of takes the plot forward. I can give you an example of a film like China Gate, for example. So that's an out and out gangster movie, and the only female presence that film has is that one song by Urmila Matondkar, and that's quote unquote an item number, Chamma Chamma Baje Re Meri Pejaniyan. And you take out the song from the film and it absolutely makes no difference to the plot of the play. So it was just a kind of a relief to the action that was building up. So that is on, it's just kind of, adding on, on the peripheries and trying to create certain subplots which would give, more traction to the main plot. But otherwise, the roles for women were very, very marginal. And that is primarily because, as how Ghazala explains, that the set is conceived, painted, defined by men. How many will, of course, recently we see women filmmakers coming up, but largely it is a male-dominated media situation. And that kind of, reflects in the kind of stories that we see on screen. Laura Mulvey, again, and this is a part of, the psychoanalytic analytical theory, psychoanalysis, where she talks about the male gaze. And there's this seminal essay that she's written, Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. And this article kind of, very strongly argues that the cinematic method of classical Hollywood, and which is kind of, copied and emulated everywhere, it inevitably puts the spectator in a masculine subject position, with the figure of the woman on screen as the object of desire. So that is what the male gaze is. So even when I, as a woman, am watching the film, the camera would be placed and the camera angles would be such and the camera movement would be such that it would take the eyes of a male spectator and it would gaze at a female object with a sense of desire, as if it were an object. So everybody behind, when we are watching the screen, irrespective of us being men, women, we assume that same role when we are looking down upon the woman. So, I mean, you can imagine all the B grade, C grade, and plenty of these films where, the camera actually takes that voyeuristic gaze, so to speak, when it's looking at women's bodies, and it tries to fragments a woman's body, fragments it into different body parts, and not just see her as a complete entity with a certain sense of intellectual faculty. So Laura Mulvey has also kind of said, she's argued that one absolutely crucial change is that the feminist film theory is today an academic subject to be studied and taught. Visual pleasure and narrative cinema was a political intervention primarily influenced by the women's liberation movement. And in my specific case, a women's liberation study group in which we read Freud and realized the usefulness of psychoanalytic theory for a feminist project. But the kind of universal nature of this feminist male gaze, Mulvey's male gaze is kind of propounded. And now we also talk about an alternative space where we talk about the female gaze, very interestingly. I hope we'll have some time to discuss it later on this session. Another very important feminist scholar, Judith Butler, and she's been instrumental in propounding theories on intersectional feminism. She says that critical does not mean destructive, but only willing to examine what we sometimes presuppose in our way of thinking, and that gets in the way of making a more livable world. So she's basically trying to argue that, because we take things for, granted, the way we've kind of internalized patriarchy, I mean, we never question it. Like I said, how many times that you look at all the abuses, the choicest abuses in Punjabi, in Hindi, in Bengali, in so many of the languages, and all these abuses, even if it's, a fight between a man and a man, it is always kind of, focus. You're denigrating the woman in the family, the mother, the sister, the daughter. So when, they're not even associated with what's happening. So, the feminist film theories or the feminist media theories are just trying to be critical to bring out these, internalization, the way this is considered totally normative, because we never question. We totally believe this normative construction of gender, and we've totally blurred the lines between the natural and a socially engineered context. Now, the personal is a political is a very, very important slogan which started with the women's rights movements across the globe. And if I kind of try to explain it very simply, I mean, whatever happens inside the family, I mean, there's a personal space and there's a public space. So again, with the internalization and perpetuation of patriarchy and the division of labor, these spaces were created. Now, man needed to own. Man needed to kind of, control. So, the woman was always relegated within the domestic or the private sphere. And man could go out and do things, and he could get engaged in other institutions of, say, politics, education, job, just about everything, while a woman was at home, because then a man would control her. I mean, she would just be consigned to doing things in the private sphere. She would be giving birth, and the man would know that he's owning that woman's body. He's controlling it. He's the father of, the woman's child. So now in a typical set case, now if there is any kind of a domestic abuse that's happening, if there's any physical abuse or mental abuse also happening in that particular space, we saw so many instances during the pandemic. It is basically a a ramification, or it is just a kind of a microcosm of what is largely happening in society, or what is largely going to happen in society. So this oppression within the home kind of spills over to the streets, where you have eve teasing. It spills over further, and you have rapes and abductions and murder of women. And so the person is very political. So if you say that, oh, a man and a woman, a husband or a wife fighting, and oh, a woman beating up a woman is none of our business, it is purely personal, that is totally a negated concept, because this personal is very, very political. And that is how this movement, kind of gave them to come to it gave them the strength and the stamina to come together and collectively fight against oppression. Betty Friedan is again, very, very celebrated scholar, and she kind of, talks about this feminist mystique, and she kind of, talks about the definitions, how media defines women. Well, media very clearly and very interestingly defines what women should wear, where and when they should move, and how they should behave. I mean, so many examples. So you'll see this construction, of a good, virtuous woman who would be the heroine, and a femme fatale, or a bad woman who would be doing things which she's not supposed to do. She would be wearing clothes that is not ascribed, quote unquote, socially by society. She would go to places, all the vamps, for example, they would be in the dens and in the lairs and in these noir spaces of the city, the underbelly of the city, where a crime is happening, gangsters are staying, and they would behave in a promiscuous way. In a sense, they would be flaunting their sexuality, they would be openly talking about it. So there was this very clear division between the white and the black. And of course, the woman on the, on the whiter side, the heroine, so to speak, she would be all nurturing. She would be a mother. She would be constantly sacrificing. She would not be giving credence to and giving precedence to all other requirements of the family. And she would keep herself, behind. She would be coy, she would be demure, she would be shy. So this is how this, again, this compartmentalization, even within, this genre of woman was created, the bad woman and the good woman. Of course, this idea in Hindi cinema, the idea of a good woman was kind of largely drawn from, again, the religious scriptures of how, a woman would be. But mostly what interestingly happened, that this woman was denigrated because her entire sense of agency was taken away. She was only doing services. She was only behaving as she was, being ascribed a certain sense of value. If she behaved in this way, only then she would be virtuous. Otherwise, she would be the femme fatale. So basically what the media is doing is that it's trying to create media stereotypes. It is creating stereotypes around gender realities. It's perpetuating gender existences, and it is also conditioning gender experiences. So this again is a very, very interesting example of the happy housewife heroine, or the ideal woman. Now these are two, shots that I've taken. One is an advertisement for, a glass cleaner. And this is from the American context. It was an ad, very old, I think 1970s. So here you look at, the happy housewife, or the ideal woman. So she's, in home, personal space, doing the cleaning. That is the work that she was supposed to do. And the other one on the right side is just the same juxtaposition. If you look at, the same, the glass and the cleaning and the liquid cleaner. So again, in Indian context, but largely the universality of the relegation or the delegation or the submission of a woman to a very, very domestic space, only trying to do personal chores, only trying to do household works. Now the question rises as to what happens because of such portrayals. What this kind of media portrayal does is that it's trying to give invisibility to women. It's trying to create a sense of marginalization of women's work. It's also trying to, when I talked about, defining a socially normative behavior for women and girls, that is what it's doing. It's giving definitions of normal, and it's also providing a certain sense of public sanction to men. And very, very importantly, it's kind of numbing and desensitizing people towards women's issues, and we'll see how. How much time do I have, Pooja?
Ma'am, time is all yours.
Okay, so fine. Okay, thank you so much. So again, let us come to this beauty myths. So what is this beauty myth? Mass media teaches us as to how women and should be portrayed on television, in movies, and in advertisements, and how it has kind of created a concept of what is beautiful. So the beauty myth was given by Naomi Wolf, and it kind of talks about what, quote unquote, again, is aesthetic beauty. And in this process, it's objectifying women, and it's encouraging this discipline to create an added financial burden on women. They have to look a certain way to be acceptable. I mean, now of course you have these whitening creams and fair and lovely and whatever for men also, but largely it is the burden, the onus, that you have to look a certain way, you have to have a certain shape, size, a certain size, to be accepted and to be considered beautiful. And by saying beautiful, I imply being able to be accepted in society. Let's see how. So the beauty myth talks about a culture fixated on female thinness, and it's kind of an obsession about female beauty. It is an obsession about it is not just an obsession about female beauty, but also an obsession about female obedience. I'll tell you how. Dieting is the most potent political sedative in women's history. A quietly mad population is a tractable one. So this one very, very, the size 0, and you take this pill and you join the gym and you do this and you do that, and you have to be like thin to be able to be accepted. So if there's a wedding in the family, you have these, certain kind of conflicts which make you lose weight. So that's on a lighter note. But look at, the first, visual on the right side of the screen. Now, how many of you, I don't know if you've heard about this concept of foot binding. Pooja, have you heard about foot binding? It's a Chinese tradition.
No, I've not heard about it.
Okay, so it's very interesting in the sense that the moment a girl is born, and this is a very ancient Chinese tradition, and when girls are born, when they attain the age of 3 to 4 years, their foot is bound. It is kind of they are made to wear footwear which is a couple of sizes smaller to the size of their feet. And it's all tied. I mean, you can look at the image and you can look up on the internet and you find so many instances. And the idea was that, a woman should be, having very dainty feet, one. And because of your foot was bound, you would not be able to walk very fast. You would not be able to walk comfortably and, saunter around and things like that. How vis-a-vis, say, a man would do. So you would take very demure, small, feminine, quote unquote, feminine baby steps. So that again, was a tradition which so strongly kind of, talks about this, female subservience and obedience. I mean, that even, and this is such a, what can I say? It's such a cruel tradition. I mean, girls would bleed, their feet would all get deformed. They would have diseases, and still this tradition continues till date, where, in some families, in some traditions in China, they do foot binding so that, a woman cannot have large feet and she cannot walk like, normally take giant strides and walk around. So these are the kind of beauty myths which has been perpetrated again by media also. So this is one research from which I've kind of, just taken certain findings. Just 1 minute. Yeah. So it kind of, the findings and the resolution and, of this research pointed out that advertising creates a mythical, mostly white world in which people are rarely ugly, overweight, poor, struggling, or disabled, either physically or mentally. Scientific studies and the most casual viewing yield the same conclusion. Women are shown almost exclusively as housewives or sex objects. Many women internalize these stereotypes and learn their limitations, thus establishing a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even so, and this internalization of this sense of being weaker or not, should not, this do's and don'ts which has been prescribed as in consonance to your gender, it is so deep, it is so entrenched that even a working woman kind of the moment she comes back home, I don't know, I mean, how many of you have seen working women around you, and they just come back and they rush to the kitchen and they are over apologetic about the fact that they've not taken care of the child the whole day, and then they come and cook a meal, while the man who comes back after work is like just retiring, his work is done. with his work done at the workplace, and he owes no responsibility whatsoever. So women get these opportunities. So for example, to travel for work, and this is sense of guilt. Oh, I'm going to leave my child behind. He has his exams. How will we cope up? So largely because, he or she is made to internalize the stereotype that this is her limitation and this is a duty, and is she or is duty bound to do it. An example, now this is a laptop, which is, the target audience is specifically, the young girls and the young women. And this talks about the Pebble laptop. And now normally when you go to buy a laptop, for example, what are the features that you'd look at, Pooja? What are the features? I mean, would you just look at, whether it's got the pinks and the purples, or would you look for anything else in a laptop?
I'll be very honest. I personally dislike pink color.
Okay. Yeah. So now you tell me, but okay, I got that. But when you're going to buy a laptop, or let's say a phone, what are the things that you look for? You look for what's the memory? What is the processing
RAM,
power?
yes.
Yeah, exactly. How durable it is? What is the company?
Yes.
Exactly. So these are the things. Do you even care whether it's a stylish laptop? I mean, that's the last, thing on your priority list. But this laptop, and this ad, by the way, Pooja, was very successful. As it kind of, hits the bullseye when it says the Pebble laptop, as stylish as you are. And you can see the, elements around a pink diary and a pink, I don't know, lipstick and a nail paint also. I mean, completely I'm not saying that, using a lipstick or a nail paint is wrong, but kind of trying to create these sweeping connections and generalizations of what a woman should use. That is the problem that we're discussing here. Some other ads that you all must have seen. Surf. So this is a very, very, old ad. Bahut purana hai. I remember, when we were in school and all that. And so Lalita ji would come and, before, any of the programs, and, surf, Lalita ji, apne ye kyun kharida? Ye kyun nahi kharida? Like, 2 detergents. And Lalita ji would say, Are, aap jante nahi, Mishra ji, surf kharidne mein hi to samajhdari hai. So all the samajhdari that a woman, all the intelligence and the IQ that a woman could have is totally kind of, zeroed to the fact that she can buy a good detergent. She can choose a better detergent over a not so good one. So that's it. Again, how many times have you ever seen a man kind of, doing an ad for a masala? Or say Maggie? I don't know if Maggie is kind of, if there's a change now, like... but a man preparing Maggie, maybe now boys in hostels and all, there are a couple of ads, but it's largely, mummy 2 minute, and the Maggie is ready. It's all these things, the masala, all the household products, has to be a woman. Interestingly, even an ad like, a soap, where, bodies need to be showed. So quintessentially, it's the woman, the cornflakes, and it's even the ads which have, which are kind of targeted to men now, like the bikes, or, the undergarments for men, that too also have women, and how these women treated through Laura Mulvey's male gaze. I mean, always objectified, and that is which brings the profit. So these are a few ads. I'll just like to kind of, play a couple of them for you. So this is this Aam Sutra ad by Kareena Kapoor. I'm sure you all have seen it. Let me see if I can. Just give me a minute. Yeah. Okay, so there's just one more. Okay, Axe deodorant, I think we all have seen, so I'm not going into that. There's just one more very interesting ad. You just see it for yourself. Let me just play it for you. Okay, so I hope you could see that. So the second ad was the Fair and Lovely ad. It's basically, spoof on the Fair and Lovely ad, which kind of, you just change the bulb and then, you're beautiful and you look bright and, you're accepted for marriage. I mean, but basically, I mean, the larger point that I'm trying to make is that in all of them, you can see that the objectification, the stereotyping of, one gender is so obvious. Now, let us come to the next slide. Okay, so this is the gender medium monitoring project, and this is some data. I mean, it's not very new data. The project was again done in 2020, but it quite kind of got delayed, because of the pandemic. But I think now it's ready. This is a slightly older data, but it kind of, looks at the representation and portrayal of women in news media. And, these are some of the, statistics that we've come with. News subjects, women 24%, the subject of news, males just 76%, women as news reporters just 37%, 77% again is male dominated workforce, women centric stories just 13%, gender policy preference 10%, highlighting gender equality 6%. And trust me, during the pandemic, this ratio become even more skewed, where women, because they were, women reporters were not going out, women's stories were not being covered. And when domestic abuse and physical abuse really kind of, rose sharply, these cases were not being reported because of the lockdown to the police station. So that kind of even skewed and made these figures worse in terms of gender equality. Now, if you look at women in news, they're primarily, they are news providers. They are kind of portrayed as victims of rapes, abductions, murders. Of course, they're media professionals also, and women as news subjects. So these are largely the brackets under which you can look at women in news. Now, like I said, that it's a very, very bleak picture out there, because most of them, of what is happening and all the crimes against women, it largely becomes a story of victimhood. You're not even called a survivor. There is no sensitivity in gender reportage in crime-related stories, related to women, and mostly just treated as statistics, faceless statistics, and not just people of real flesh and blood. Again, when we talk about the changing images of women in Indian advertisements, this is how slowly from earlier. So earlier, women in TV ads largely were seen with a bindi, a mangal sutra, 1960s predominantly sari. Now slowly the working woman image is rising, but predominantly it still remains a woman which is relegated to the personal sphere, the private sphere, and not the public sphere. Media also plays a big role on body image and how teenagers perceive them. We've already talked about the beauty myth. We've already talked about this fat to remain very thin. So this is some more statistics. The average weight of a model is 23% lower than that of an average woman. 20 years ago, the difference was only about 8%. So slowly, you have to be a certain, body type to be acceptable. There is now a $33 billion diet industry that was non-existent 20 years ago. In the last 25 years, there has been a 60% increase in females shown purely as decorative or sex objects. The body type portrayed in advertising as the ideal is naturally possessed by only 5% of the women in the United States. In a recent survey by Teen People magazine, 27% of the girls felt that media pressures them to have a perfect body. 69% of girls in one study said that the magazine model influenced their body and their idea of a perfect body shape. Now, the problem with, representations and the problem with media kind of, trying to perpetuate these representations, it's not that, society has been behaving differently. Of course, the society has engineered, like I said, gender is a social construct. But the problem is that, what media does is that it takes up a single signified and it kinds of multiplier and the kind of a ripple effect, the cascading effect that it has, because here's one heroine and she becomes the role model. Look at all the celebrity endorsements. So when it's Madhuri Dixit or when it's even Shah Rukh Khan and he comes and and when they come and say that, okay, I have Chawanprash every day, or let's say I have Horlicks every day, everybody is going and doing, without trying to find out whether that product is good or bad. So this kind of, a collective cascading effect of what is there in the media, that is, the accepted fad, creates, this idea about what Lisa Tickner says, that representations enter our collective social understandings, constituting our sense of ourselves, the position we take up in the world, and the possibilities we see for action in it. So, so just another, some more diagrams to kind of, explain women and men portrayed as doing women, work, in the workforces on and all. Just look at the percentage. It's like 20% out of, when 80% of the men are shown doing things. So this is an example of the W.H. Smiths and Borders magazine, where idealized women, women are idealized all the time. How many times we talk about how a man should look, how he should be kind of, dressed, how he should be talking. No, I mean, we don't talk about these parameters. We only talk about what should be the ideal scenario for a woman. Of course, some exceptions there, some, newsmakers and women journalists, and especially when we're talking about media. So these are some of the known faces that are there. Again, some exceptions in cinema, largely. I have largely talked about the stereotypes in cinema. So these are some examples of how, things have kind of, slightly changed, because now women filmmakers are coming up. So Mother India was, of course, an iconic film. So you have, Balika Badhu by Satyajit Ray, and then you have Raj Kaini or Begum Jan. So some, Mardani, so many examples where women are kind of, they are the doers, they are the protagonists of the film. But still, if you look at the larger landscape, very, very limited kind of a woman-centric portrayal at large. Some more examples here. Now, Joanna Blakely has said that identity is social. It's raining cats and dogs here in Bengal. Identity is social, not merely in the sense of being relational. It is also social in the sense that it is negotiated. We do not stride into the social world as wholly formed individuals, nor are we put in the hands of the collective. Instead, we become who we are in relation to others, as others become themselves in relation to us. So media is the image, media in our image, and media becomes our image. What we see in media, that is exactly what we try to emulate. Now, I'll try to kind of, end my presentation with a couple of these, advertisements, which are kind of tried to evolve and which are trying to take the discussion forward in a progressive way. There are, of course, nowadays you do find these, ads, a lot of Tata Tanishq ads. So there's this one ad, where a girl is getting her mother married, the second time around. So there's some in between. So I've just picked up a few which kind of, make you question the normative that is existing in society, and kind of also creates a space for us to, like, move forward, and where we can look at gender equitable representations. So let us just see a few of these ads. Okay, so this again, in a way evolving where, the wife is the boss. I mean, which is not the situation where women hardly are shown as the primary breadwinners. But again, she has to ascribe that to that role of, being a perfect homemaker too, to be able to be accepted in toto. So a slight progression, but of course, also a lot of food for thought. And here's another ad that I'd like you to see. Pooja, my screen is visible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
But the audio is not clear.
Actually, there's some issue with the audio today. I don't know. I'll just share the links of these ads, in the chat box also. So if somebody wants to watch it later. So this was the one I was talking about, a girl getting her mother married the second time around. So So, just a little bit of a progress that is there. So, and now we quickly, because we're in the age of new media, so I'll just quickly like to talk about how kind of, what we call the post-structuralist feminism, the intersectional feminism, and how social media now has kind of, in a sense, democratized women's voices and given them a sense of agency. So there is this concept of digital democracy, where, when we talk about equality and right to equality is a sustainable, gender equality is a sustainable goal. Digital democracy has played a strong role, because here there are so many examples you see on the feminist the platforms like Facebook and Twitter, where women are actually kind of saying things. They are kind of voicing their concerns. There have been so many movements, the hashtag Me Too movement, the hashtag Hokkolra movement, and so many other movements, that have Black Lives Matter, and all these which talk about a very inclusive, equitable society, which is not disparate in terms of race, religion, gender, and identity. So, of course, this has kind of, tried to create a new space. And in this discussion and debate, there is this new perspective of the LGBTQI community which has come around. And we, of course, have a lot of misreadings, but there's still transgressions. There is visibility. There's an attempt to mainstream their voices and talk about gender and sexually diverse voices, especially in this age of social media. So, just to kind of conclude today's session, what I'd like to say is, in the telling of the story lies the story itself. The plenitude of queer desires far exceeds the queer body, and cinema is about world making. So how and what should be the India of tomorrow? I'd just like to end this with one advertisement. Let me see. I'll just play it for you. This one's the last. Okay. There's just one more that I'd like to. Yeah.
भी वो सब ठीक ठाक हो जाए और माँ और बच्चा दोनों स्वस्थ रहे। समझी? पकड़ो। राजा बेटा नहीं, रानी बैठी हुई किस्मत अच्छी है हमारी, इसलिए ज्यादा किस्मत अच्छी आपके लिए इस पैसे से अच्छा खरीद कर ले।
So with I think with that, we come to an end of today's discussion. Good or bad, boy or girl. So, I mean, of course, a lot to kind of, do to, end stereotypes, but I guess that's going to happen sooner. And we'll kind of try to break those divides. And let's hope that media can take that positive role where it can, uh, uh, try to build a society which is equitable, which is diverse, and talk about issues which actually, are the need of the day. So thank you.
Indeed, Dr. Yasmin, it was really a wonderful session, and talking about, like we started this session talking about equality and the wonderful Ashtami day today. The session is really beautifully crafted, I must say. Dr. Amrish Saxena is also here with us.
Very good afternoon,
Hi,
sir.
sir.
Just a minute. Yeah, good afternoon. So I somehow missed most of the part of the uh, lecture for some really such engagement which I could not avoid. But I hope the topic was such it would have been really wonderful for all the participants who were there in this session. And just now in some of the meeting where I was there, only this was being discussed, the gender issues and the feminism, the post-feminism, that all those things. So I think there has to be more and more sensitization among the younger generations on such issues so that we can build a better and more equitable society, I believe. Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much, sir.
You have answered everything. You have covered everything so beautifully that I seriously do not have anything to speak. So it's really a very well crafted and very well planned presentation you came along with. Really appreciate.
Thank you. I just hope that, our audiences and especially students and whosoever is sourcing the videos can, kind of try to summate everything, from the basic concept of gender, how it's evolved, and, how media has kind of, played various roles to either perpetuate it or, kind of take it forward.
Yes,
so thank you very much, Pooja, for giving me this opportunity. Thanks to GMAC and, thanks to Professor Amrish Saxena. Thanks to Professor Ujjwal K. Chaudhary, sir. Again, wish him a very speedy recovery. He's recuperating from a surgery. So, it's their guidance which has created this, landmark council. And let's hope that we go places with Global Media Education Council.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to have such sessions planned on such a beautiful day today. And really good to have you, Dr. Yasmin. Amrish sir, thank you so much for your support in coordinating and arranging these sessions. We really appreciate it. And yes, we are meeting next what with PR now, advertisement, no gender equality. Now we'll be talking about PR, and we have PR Guru coming on the platform on 6th of October. Yes, I'd like to share the screen of his poster. He is He's Dr. Suresh Gaur. Dr. Gaur will be talking about the basic understanding of public relations, how important it is, and what is the role of public relations, like how it makes a difference. So public relations, as we in generally we know, it's really important, and I'm sure sir will be able to give us more insights and more deeper information and knowledge on the public relations domain. Till then, enjoy. Thank you so much, Ghazala ma'am. I'm
Thank
pretty
you
sure
so much. Thank you. It was my pleasure.
really wonderful. Thank you so much. Take care and enjoy the Shera. Enjoy Naomi. And yes, we'll meet on 6th. Bye. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.